In other words, it was Lack more than Darwin who imputed evolutionary significance to the Galapagos finches. Now, something did impute significance, and he gives illustrations in Origin of Species, but every one of those illustrations that he gives, every one has been debunked scientifically, being without merit to justify natural selection producing change in living systems. More than 50 years later, this academic brainwashing continues, David Bassett writes. In 1998, the National Academy of Sciences, NAS, the most prestigious scientific organization in the United States, issued a guidebook to every public school science teacher in the country to urge them to promote neo-Darwinism in order to shape the students' thinking, even in the face of unexpected local opposition from the still unconvinced masses who know how to think for themselves. On page 19 of the guidebook, entitled Ongoing Evolution Among Darwin's Finches, the National Academy of Sciences deliberately censors evidence in order to whitewash evolutionism. Now, that's tragic. The complete text reads as follows. Watch closely. A particularly interesting example of contemporary evolution involves the 13 species of finches studied by Darwin on the Galapagos Islands, now known as Darwin's finches. A research group led by Peter and Rosemary Grant of Princeton University has shown that a single year of drought, 1977, on the islands can drive evolutionary changes in the finches. Well, does it? No. Changes the count because those who can't eat die. Drought diminishes, this is what the NAS continues to write, drought diminishes supplies of easily cracked nuts, that's correct, but permits the survival of plants that produce larger, tougher nuts, that is correct. Drought thus favors birds with strong, wide beaks that can break these tougher seeds, okay, producing populations of birds with these traits. Well, sure, because the others die, and you get 3 or 4 broods a year, you're going to repopulate. The Grants have estimated that if droughts occur about every 10 years on the islands, a new species of finch might arise in only around 200 years. Well, okay, but it's not a result of natural change in the genetics. It's a matter of count. Note, this time span supports rapid post-flood speciation within kinds. So that's true. But let's go on. It is noteworthy that National Academy of Science version of the Grant's finch beak story is according to intelligent design advocate Philip Johnson, Harvard graduate in law, in truncated form in order to give the misleading impression that it illustrates permanent directional change. This omits the important fact that the change was cyclical and the beak size reverted to normal after a flood season. Wow! Now, look at me a moment. Look what's happening. It's not that the beaks are changing. It's that the count of the birds that survive that changes. Those with small beaks have not grown larger beaks. Now, there's the potential to change to some degree, but an immediate change overnight is simply a matter of the count. But each has the ability to adapt to a context if they don't die first. But birds die pretty quickly if they're not nourished. The full truth of the Grant's research involved the fact that and here again is the Harvard grad, and also he was the head of the law department at, I think it was UCLA, the head of the entire department. So he continues to write that the drought year in question, 1977, was followed by the heavy El Nino rains and floods of 82 and 83. As a result, the drought-induced selection trend 77-82 was completely reversed. The average, but it's an average count of finch beak size, promptly returned to the normal mean. It's a matter of counting those that survive. And no net, much less long-term evolutionary change occurred. The straight line represents the extrapolation that predicts the origin of a new species of finch in 200 years. The wavy line represents a cyclical change so far observed. So what is scientifically observed is no real change at all, even though they do have the genetic adaptability potential, but they have to express that pretty quickly because they're going to die in a few weeks if they don't eat. So would you. You getting the idea? Okay, let's try to wrap this up. In the 1998 National Academy of Science Guidebook to Public Schools also conveniently failed to quote the title of Peter Grant's 87 article on which their summary was based, a paper submitted to Nature magazine under the heading, Oscillating Selection on Darwin's Finches. Oscillating, it changes, it goes up and down, and selection is there, natural selection is there, but natural selection, you want to get this, natural selection does not produce anything new. It preserves what's already in place, including the genetic ability of adaptability. Such a title would have signaled to discerning teachers and perhaps also to perceptive students that the finch beak example involves no neo-Darwinism onward and upward progression change at all. Curious, isn't it, that how this awkward fact was excluded from science teacher educational material, thereby being rendered unavailable for student instruction. And we have the lawyer, head of the legal department, still talking here. The splitting of one species into two is required by Darwin evolution. The merging of two species together due to hybridization, which has occurred and has been recognized since the grants were there, currently being observed in several species. So you have the merging into one species of two different species. Very interesting, all because of genetic capability.